Welcome to Fairy Tale Access, where the head fairy's quest is to prove that fairy tales do exist in actual time rather than once upon a time. Together, we will unravel the heroes, young and old, who turn dreams into reality. These are the people who still believe in happily ever after. The discoveries will bend even our most cynical non-believers into believing in fairy tales. Hi, welcome to Fairy Tale Access. Today, our author is Tora Moon, and the name of her book is Ancient Enemies. It's a great story. Thank you for joining us. We're so happy to have you here.
Oh, I'm so excited to be here too, and I'm glad you enjoyed the book.
I loved
I
it.
had fun writing it.
Where did you get the idea for this ancient culture?
Um, the idea for the book came up with watching the very first season of Sci-Fi's Face Off, and one of the finalists had this great Red Riding Hood and werewolf scene where she was dressed in all in red leather and had this great weapon, and it was like, ooh, that would be a cool story. And then I just started writing it. The only thing that's left of that is the red leather. And the guys shapeshift into warrior forms.
I know, that was such a great transition the way you did it, though. So different from both of those stories. And how long have you been writing?
I started my first story when I was 18 and didn't finish it. Computer crashes. And besides, that wouldn't have been a good story. And then I kept writing and kept writing, even when I was doing accounting work, because I used to be a CPA, which is kind of odd for a writer. But I kept writing, and then I moved from California to Utah. I was in my RV, and I heard about NaNoWriMo, which is the National Novel Writing Month in November. I said, well, this could be the kick in the pants to actually finish a story. And so I worked on Ancient Enemies for that.
Oh, wow. How did you do?
I did pretty good. I got the 50,000, and then I was like, oh, I can do this, and then kept writing and finished that and went on to write the other 5 stories in the series.
Wow. How long did it take you to write all 5?
The first one I started in 2014, and then I finished the last one last year.
Oh, that's great.
And the last 2 are like 160,000 words. So they're like 2 novels in one. So that one took longer. Sent it to my editor, and she goes, oh, you've got some timing issues. So I had to rewrite both of those.
Oh, wow. That's always
Yeah.
hard. I hate
Yeah,
negative
but
feedback.
Well, it made the story better. And that's why I appreciate working with editors, because they always make your story better.
Oh, definitely. You tackle some really tough subjects in this book, like love and who it's okay to love. And you did it in such a
Yeah.
soft way that I think it's great for young readers to just really understand like different levels of love and how people love each other. And
Yeah, that
it's
was one.
not like thrown out there. It's not telling you how to think. It's helping you understand like different relationships. It was really well
Yeah,
done.
thank you. This culture is not Earth. Yeah, it's not set on Earth. So some of their morals or what they think of what's right for their society isn't necessarily what's here on Earth, which was for that society, having a monogamous relationship is the off one, not the norm. And they love who they love. And it's,
Right, and creating bonds with people. And
yeah,
I think it had a lot to do with life on Earth.
yeah. Yeah, I can reflect here. I am living here, so yeah. that does play into it. Yeah.
It was great. And I love the twists and turns and their ancient enemies, the monsters, and how they're evolving.
Yeah, and that comes out in book 4 of exactly who the enemies are. Um, the 4th book is Exile's Vengeance, and that's where the exiles and their enemies break away and escape their exile and come to the main continent, and there's battle.
You get a hint of what was coming in this book, I think. But it was
Yeah, there's hints all the way through.
a
Yeah.
great way that you built the different communities, how they all came together in the face of the same enemy.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, it was just outstanding the way that it all
Yes.
rolled together.
Well, I believe in cooperation instead of competition. And that was one of the things that I wanted to bring out, is that we can cooperate in society and make our society better rather than this fighting that we're seeing. And especially in today's environment, that
Definitely.
we
It
can
even,
have that in
I'm sorry, go
no
ahead.
worries. Yeah. And we don't have to fight and we don't have to hate just because somebody's a little bit different than you are.
Right. And you tackled mental illness really well in this book, too. You
Yeah,
almost
I
felt
did.
bad. Yes, you almost felt bad for the guy, but then you're like, I don't know, maybe he's possessed or something. But
Oh, that one.
yes,
Yeah, yes. He was kind of fun to write. He was kind of my antagonist in this story.
definitely.
And we don't see him until book 4 again.
Oh,
And in
really?
book 4, he comes back totally changed, and not a good way.
Oh, really can get worse?
Yes, he can.
Wow. Where'd you come up for the design for the book cover?
I don't take any credit for that. I send it off to my great cover designers and gave them some ideas of covers that I really liked, one of which was Lindsay Brewbroker's say, got this great red cover, and I will have to find the name for that. um, and it was one that just the striking red, and then they came back with that. And the first time my dad saw the cover, he goes, "Is that you?" I was like, "No." And it does kind of look like me. And my cover designers live in Eastern Europe and have never seen me. So it
Oh,
was
that's
kind of,
funny. But your book
it was
was
kind
really
of,
vivid and how we picture the character, so it really
mm-hmm.
fits. Like the details are
Okay.
vivid without being like she has red hair and green eyes. It was just the whole concept of how they're different that really drew you in and gave you this full, bright picture of this community. Where'd you get the ideas for all the different types of magic that come into play?
Um, I've been studying that kind of thing for a long time. I've been studying, how to do magic and, pagan philosophy. So a lot of that does come into my book. And so it was just expanding now. How could people actually work with elemental magics? And it came on the idea of, oh, the red hair would be fire, and the different colors of hair and eye would significate what magic they could use. And there's no purple hair because fire and water don't mix.
Ah, okay. That
Even
makes
though I
sense.
love purple. I love purple. And I was like, no, fire and water just don't mix. So there's no purple hair or purple eyes.
Well, I love the mix of characters and the strong women characters that you portrayed.
I love strong women characters and strong women. And it's one of my ways to help empower women is if I can write strong characters that overcome things but are still women. They're not they're not women in men's clothing,
Right.
how we see a lot of that of women trying to be too masculine. Yeah, Roselia can kick butt, but she also has a lot of compassion.
Exactly. And the way that they all came together and that stepping stone on your way to being a leader. Like,
Mm-hmm.
you try to push against it, you keep pushing against it, and then suddenly you're there. And it's through trial and error. I thought that was a great segue to bring people into, being responsible and
Yeah,
understanding
and
the responsibilities.
there are some things that you were born to do, and you can't escape that. Even if you try, if you've got the gift for writing, I did accounting for 25 years and I always came back to writing. And that's my gift to the world and sharing to the world. Even though I
Wow.
fought against it.
Yeah. But now it gives you an appreciation. And
Yeah.
so, how many stories are going to take place in the entire series?
The series is complete. That storyline is complete. But I left the last book open that if I want to write more stories in the world, I can. Yeah. Not everything is totally settled. In book 3, I have an alien invasion. And I really debated whether I needed that book or not, but there was things that happened in that book that made book 4 possible.
Oh,
But
okay.
if I hadn't have written that one, book 4 would have never happened. They would have never found the way to fight the Malvers. If they hadn't had the alien invasion. And part of that, one of those surprise things that happened that you don't ever plan, was the aliens brought several slave races with them. And in one scene, they're rescuing some of the people that were captured by the scourge. And more people are running. And it was like, who are those people? I didn't know who those people were. That's the joy of writing, is you get to discover it. And it was another slave species, one of the slave species escaped. And so now, rather than having a homogeneous society, you've got this another race with different cultures, different deities, that I think that could make some really fun stories.
Wow. I love the way that you mix mythology, folklore, religion, paganism. The mix is
Yeah.
great. And the horseback riding. So, are you a really good horseback rider? Because those
No, I
scenes were
wish.
vivid. Wow.
When I was in college, I did take horseback riding classes where we learned how to not just ride, but put on the gear and all the tack and, dig out the stones and the frogs and all of that. So we learned that. And I've always loved horses. So it was, those scenes were fun to write. And then I found a picture of a zorse. So the striped horses were based on an actual picture
Oh, wow.
of a cross between a zebra and a horse. There are a few viables that have come through that. And it was like, ooh, this is really cool. How can I work that in? And it's like, oh. And then all of a sudden they were plains horses, and they were the ones that were striped and had more intelligence than the other horses. And
Wow. Where did you get the ideas for the way the community is set up and the stops that they make along the way in safe houses? Because it seems like you took a lot from different cultures and religions, and it was such a nice mix.
part of it was that, if they've got these monsters that are fighting, that they're, you know, very dangerous, they couldn't travel at night or travel very far. So they had to have places where they could stop, be safe, and it had to be within traveling distance. So that's why there was a lot. That's where I came up with that, was just, okay, if they're if it's dangerous to travel, they've got to have some travel. They can't be totally isolated.
Right. There's
Yeah.
some scary scenes in there when, you know, dealing with mental illness and, just that sporadic craziness all of a sudden. But it was
Mm-hmm.
really well developed the way that you led the reader into that.
Well,
It's just
thank
like,
you.
wow, what happened? you know? But it just pulled you in to keep reading things. I was up like all night for a couple of nights reading that book.
You're welcome.
Bags under my eyes.
That's when you know it's a good book, when you stay up all night reading.
Oh,
Yeah.
no. You know it's a really good book when you're thinking about it days later and wondering if the author has finished book 2 so you can keep going. And that is this book, definitely.
Yeah. Yes, and the answer is yes. Book 2 is done and published. That one is Ancient Allies. And at the very end of book 1, Chariel gets this prophecy, which totally leads into book 2. And that's what the whole book 2 is about, is fulfilling that prophecy of finding the ancient Fengriffs, which were at one time allies, but according to the Fengriffs mythology, they were slaves. And they don't really like the Poser people. So there's some, it's not an easy task to convince them to come and
No.
fight with them.
Yeah, and it was great because it wasn't like a prophecy where this could happen. You had reminders of free will that could mix the pot and create a different decision. So that left the reader intrigued with more. Like, wait, where's book 2? I
Yeah.
hope she's done with her series so I can read it. Because you really get into a series and then you're waiting for the writer to finish the next book. So it's exciting that book 2 is out there.
Yeah, book 2, yeah. And then I did a bonus novel called Redemption, which is the story of Roselia's parents. Because it's, I hint at their story in book 1 about how her mom died. I'm just saying that her mom was dead, but how did she die? And that they developed the method that they used to fight the monsters. So Redemption is going back and writing her parents' story and what happens to her father, Histron, when her mom dies. And it kind of weaves in because he goes to the sanctuary and meets Blazel, who is Roselle's love interest in book 2.
Oh, that should be interesting.
So it's you kind of need to read that because then you get some back history that you don't otherwise. I know some people don't like reading prequels, but this one fits in a lot, and there's things that happen in Redemption that gets pulled into book 4.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's a good twist. So
Yeah, it's like,
you said you traveled in an RV. How long did you travel in an RV? Because your landscapes throughout are really vivid. Are they of any place in particular?
no, not really. They're just, what's this world like, and just going into my imagination and letting it bloom. But I traveled for 3 years by myself in a fifth wheel. So I was having to hitch it and hitch it, and backing up is not fun.
Wow, yeah.
Yeah, so I was in California at the time, drove to Colorado, up to Denver, and all the way through that way. Loved Taos, New Mexico. Then I drove all the way up the coast to California and over to Mount Shasta and spent a summer there. So it was fun. I really enjoyed doing it.
That sounds great. You can definitely see some of those elements in the way that you write the storyline and the way that they're traveling and where they're going.
Yeah, yeah. And I've also traveled a lot outside of the U.S. I'm actually one of the few women that have been to Pakistan.
Oh, wow.
I've been there twice. Before the current unrest, the company that I was working for had operations in Lahore, Pakistan, and so I went there a couple times during the financial audits, and it was fun.
Did
That
you
was
get a
fun.
chance to tour?
I did. They were really good about taking me out and touring, so I got to see Shalimar Gardens, which was fantastic, Lahore Fort, which in some of the walls, because Lahore Fort was the second capital of India, because Pakistan used to be part of India.
Right.
And during the British occupation, you can still see bullet holes in the walls
Ooh.
from the occupation. So that was cool. One of the Muhairs that built Lahore Fort also built the Taj Mahal. So you see some of that black and white marble reflected inside the fort as well. So that was fun to see. Yeah,
Definitely. Any elements
that was
from
fun.
Pakistan show up in the books?
Not in this story, but I have a story that keeps floating around in my head that's going to be set in Shalimar Gardens.
Oh,
Yeah.
that'll be nice.
Yeah. It'll be fun.
Definitely.
A shapeshifter type of story, kind of pulling in that she's only human at night, kind of like Lady Hawk, where she was during the day she was a hawk, and so kind of pulling in some of that elements. So
Oh, wow.
I have lots of stories. I don't, that's not my problem coming up with story ideas. It's just having the time to write them all.
I know. How long does it take you to write a book?
About 3 months.
What?
And then
You wrote this book in 3 months?
that one, no.
Okay.
Well, that one, that one took about 3 months, 3 or 4 months
Really?
of writing time.
Wow. I would never even come up with a concept in that amount of time.
And then
You have a good imagination.
Thank you. And I'm more of what's called a pantser or a discovery writer than a plotter. My only plotting is the big story arc and major things that need to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And then I let the story unfold. And some of the times I don't even hit those major points. It's how that story wants to unfold and the characters taking over the story. And
Well, it's definitely an amazing escape. And I love the magic. I love the people that you created in this world, the whole conflict and the way that it's handled and people interact. It all made sense all along the way. Everybody was so different.
Oh, good.
But you could
that
keep
was
track of them.
Yeah. And I wanted to make sure that their voices were different, in the dialogue.
And what else do you do in your free time? Do you have any free time?
I do have some. I do write full time. So I'm thinking about or working on writing or working on my writing business all the time. But when I'm watching TV, I crochet or knit. I like doing handcrafts. I have a new granddaughter. So I made crocheted an elephant rug for her.
Wow.
Because her nursery theme is elephants. And my daughter saw this elephant rug and she goes, "Oh, I really like that." And I said, "Find the pattern and I'll make it for you." And so I did. It turned out really cute.
Oh, that's great. And you also make wire wrap jewelry.
Yes, I do. In fact, wearing a pair of earrings.
Very nice.
Yeah, I like working with crystals and stones. And
Yeah, and those elements come out in your stories.
the story that I'm writing now, which is an urban fantasy, my main character, Catelyn, also does jewelry wrapping, and that comes into play in the magic that they do. And she's a psychic and tarot reader, so it'd be fun. It's fun.
It's definitely a great mix. Well,
Yeah.
thanks for sharing so much about what you do. Do you have any advice for young people? Any people? Any age?
Yes. If you want to be a writer, read. Yeah. Read and read and read some more. Because reading gives you that sense of story that can't be taught. And read good books, and then read some not so good books, so that you can, because good books, you don't see how good they are until you read a bad book. And then you go, oh, I can see these things, how this works better in these books. So it gives you a sense of story, gives you an innate knowing of the tropes that, because I read a lot of fantasy, so I know the innate tropes that fantasy readers expect. Yeah, I don't read romance, so I'm not going to write a romance.
Right.
Because I don't know, and romance is very formulaic and has those things that have to be hit. I hear authors say, oh, I want to write a thriller. And it's like, how many thrillers have you read? Well, none. Well, read about 100 of them before you write.
Definitely good advice. Well, thank you again for sharing so much about it. And if you guys want a really good book to read, this is it. We'll see you soon. Keep asking questions.